Welcome to something to talk about.
Hi, welcome to Something to Talk About. My name is Taco, and we're talking about a Stark, talking about a wolf, a hungry wolf, a Theon even. Theon the Hungry Wolf Stark. Let's go. I do a Song of Ice and Fire lore videos. I cover small characters, and I do them on Saturday mornings. I cover them on Saturday mornings. Get your mind out of the gutter. And then throughout the week, I make other videos too. At least one, if not more. This week I made more because I did an April Fool's video. If you don't know what's going on here, this is what's going on here. Pause this, read this. And yeah, I'm really excited to cover Theon Stark, the Hungry Wolf. Definitely a really interesting character from the lore, and a request even over a year ago. Let's just throw this out right away. Yeah, now the user is just named Mike, but it used to be Funster. And yeah, it was over a year ago when they covered or when they requested this. So yeah, I don't know why I write the request on the last screen and then still want to say it in the beginning. But yeah, you guys ready? You guys ready to talk about Theon Stark, the Hungry Wolf? Okay, then let's get into it. So the Hungry Wolf, Theon Stark, known as the Hungry Wolf, was a king of the North and head of House Stark way back in the day. Theon Greyjoy refers to Theon Stark as his namesake. So he was so awesome that his enemies then named people after him. Wow. It's kind of nuts. The Crypt of Winterfell contains a stone-crowned statue of Theon, which depicts him as thin, with long hair and a skinny beard. And he earned his nickname, the Hungry Wolf, from the constant state of war the North was in, and his gaunt appearance, right? So, yeah, he's a king of winter, so we're saying way before the conquest, right? This is actually during the Andal invasion is what we're getting at. It's going to be actually a shorter video if I just stop talking so much about nothing. But that's what we do here, right? We kind of rant, we kind of ramble. But yeah, so I kind of got everything from the World of Ice and Fire book about this guy. And yeah, so I pretty much gave you literally everything we know, and it's not a lot. So you already have seen the length of this video. I haven't. The video's not out yet when I'm recording it because I'm recording it. But you know that it's not very long. And also, so now we're going to cover House Stark. So I know since I cover small houses, I cover big houses as well. And if you already know everything there is to know about Stark, plus I've covered multiple Starks already, just jump past this, if you will. Just skip ahead until you don't see this anymore, or just let me talk. House Stark of Winterfell is one of the great houses of Westeros and is the principal noble house of the North. In days of old, they ruled as kings of winter. That's what we're talking about now. This is going to be a king of winter. But since Aegon's conquest, they have been wardens of the North and ruled as lords of Winterfell. Their seat of Winterfell is an ancient castle renowned for its strength. The Starks have a reputation of long faces, which I think this dude is one of the long-faced Starks in gray eyes. Some are known for their melancholy iciness, while others have the wildness, sometimes called the wolf blood. I don't know, the gauntness makes me think that he is one of the cold, icy ones like Ned, but the fact that he's constantly invading places and killing places or killing people and places, he just murders entire places. And the fact he was called the Hungry Wolf, he's probably a wolf blood guy. He's just an icy wolf blood guy. Maybe he's a mixture of both. The worst of both worlds, or best. Their sigil is, of course, a gray dire wolf racing across a field of white. Their words are "Winter is coming." One of the only few house mottos that is a warning rather than a boast. So, yeah, I think this is the oldest, as in like further back in the lore character I've ever covered. I guess it depends on if what's his name? The Snowbeard, Edric Snowbeard Stark might be before him. I guess I don't know off the top of my head. So he might be the oldest. All right. Let's just jump right into it with the coming of the Andals. So generational warfare had occurred in Westeros between the first men and the children of the forest, but the pact between the two people led to 4,000 years of peace and worship of the old gods by the first men, the Andals of the first new people. The Andals were the first new people of Westeros since the Pact, and they came from the hills of Andalos in western Essos. Their religion, the Faith of the Seven, teaches that Hugor of the Hill and his Andals were promised a kingdom in a foreign land by the Seven, which led to the Andals sailing to Westeros. Maesters instead believed that the Andals were actually traveled west under the pressure from expanding Valyrian freehold, so they were like running from the Valyrians with their dragons and slavery and stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's worth running from dragons and slavery and stuff. The Andals wielded iron in contrast to the bronze of the first men, and were gradually defeated in generational wars over hundreds of years. Yeah, so depending on where you are in Westeros, the Andals either came over and married into a lot of the houses, like in the Reach, right? Or they came over and kind of conquered, like in the Vale, where the House Aaron is not a first man house, is actually an Andal house that they kind of beat a lot of the old kings into submission, like the Royces were old first men, and other houses that they kind of, made them took over, right? Or you have here the North, and we'll see what happens, because this is what we're talking about. Crossing the narrow sea in their hundreds of thousands of long ships, the Andals made landings in the eastern shores of the North, just as they did in the South. But wherever they came ashore, the Starks and their bannermen fell upon them and drove them back to the sea. So the North were a little more successful at kind of fighting them off. As soon as the Andals showed up, the North were like, nope, and knocked them back, right? So, invading Essos. So this is where we get into King Theon, the Hungry Wolf, turned back the greatest of the threats, making common cause with the Boltons, their ancient rivals, to smash Andal warlord Argos Sevenstar in the Battle of a Weeping Water. So, yeah, kind of, it seems like I'm guessing a lot of this is, since we don't have a lot of information, pretty much I'm not dumbing it down or summing up like I am for a lot of other characters where I have to kind of sum up the information that we have. This one, I'm pretty much giving you everything. So I'm guessing that this, what did I name him? Argos Sevenstar was kind of the biggest main push for the Andals in the North. And then Theon Stark here, like, teamed up with the Boltons. And they're like, dude, if we're going to take down these Andals who are a bigger threat than me and you are, like, we have to ally together and smash them. And they did. And that's what happened. So in the aftermath of his victory, King Theon raised his own fleet and crossed the narrow sea to the shores of Andalos, with Argos's corpse lashed to the prows of his flagship like a figurehead. That is crazy. That's the act of a crazy person. Theon burned a score of Andal villages, killing hundreds and capturing 3 tower houses and a fortified sept. The Hungry Wolf claimed the heads of the slain as prizes, carrying them back to Westeros and planting them on spikes along the coast to deter future invaders. Wow. Now, he's pretty much the only character we heard about taking the fight back to Essos, back to Andalos, right? And so he took over a couple villages, collected a bunch of heads, took over a sept, and then went back and then put the heads on a post all around the coastline. This is insane. This is insane stuff. I will get back to my thoughts on Theon after. So we got one more slide, and it's not very long because not a lot of this. Because like I said, we don't have a lot on him. So I'll cover my overall thought on his actions when I'm done. So a bloody reign. Later in his blood-drenched reign, he himself conquered the Three Sisters. So those are the islands between the North and the Vale, and landed an army on the Fingers, which is in the Vale, possibly beginning the war across the water, which is a war that we know lasted for an extremely long time. And this might be where it started. However, these conquests did not long endure. King Theon defeated rebels as well from the Rills, which are in, his own area, right, in the north. Also, and I want to say, he aided the Night's Watch in imposing generation defeat on the wildlings beyond the wall. So he put down a civil war at the Rills, right, and then also went and fought wildlings with the Night's Watch, which I guess was the wildlings must have been invading at this time. And then also Herrig Hor, the king of the Iron Islands, led a fleet of iron-born longships against the western coast of the north. So he was fighting in the east and then the north and then in his own land, and now he's fighting on the west, right? Conquering these guys, the Ironborn conquered the Stony Shore and burned the Wolveswood. So Herrig's son, Ravos the Raper, God, I really wish I didn't have to say that word, used Bear Island as a base. Theon eventually slew Ravos, however, and expelled the Ironmen from his shores, including Bear Island and Cape Kraken. And that's all we know. We don't know much about Theon the Hungry Wolf, right? But we know that he stopped the Andals and then invaded Essos and Andalos, and then picked a fight, tried to conquer the Three Sisters, and then even invaded the mainland of the Vale, and then stopped a civil war, fought against the wildlings, and then stopped an invasion from the Iron Islands. Wow, those are all the types of war you can have in the north. And he did them all, right? So let's actually talk about him. The greatest Dark King. So this was a request from over a year ago from, let's go with Finster, but not, I don't think this is their name now. So it looks like, so I went back and tried to find this post, and it was user Mike. So I had it written down when I added this to my list over a year ago, because like I said, my list is very long. I'm well into 2026 of which characters I'm going to cover already. And I already know my April Fools for 2026. That's how far I am. I'm over a year. And I wrote when I first accepted this request, like, yeah, I'll cover Theon and Theon Stark. And I said request by Finster, however you say that, right? And now when I looked, I wanted to be like, oh, when did this person request it? And when I searched through all my comments from over a year ago, it looked like it's now from somebody named User Mike. So they might have changed their name, or I wrote down the wrong person when I first wrote it down. So we'll see. There is no shortage of people loving Theon Stark, right? And calling him the greatest Stark King. So everywhere I looked for any theories or whatever on Theon Stark, it was just like love posts, like just appreciation posts on how great Theon Stark is, right? It is easy to see why. So he stopped the Andals and prevented the North from drastically changing like the other kingdoms, right? Imagine if the North was like any of the other kingdoms where there were Andal houses. He prevented all that. They kept the old gods up there. They probably would have reverted to the faith of the Seven, right? So then I found a Reddit post by Knepper, all right, sure, called Theon Stark might have been the greatest Dark King that ever lived. See, I found a lot of these, and it is self-explanatory. There are many posts that just gush over the Hungry Wolf. Now let's talk about my point of view on this. I cannot deny that stopping the Andals and the Ironborn are actions that secured the North for generations to come. Absolutely did. But taking the fight to Essos was needlessly brutal, and I do stand on that. Those villages were not a threat, right? The only people that were a threat were the ones who were attacking. These were just villages, right? I mean, we don't know anything about them, but those villages likely were not a threat. They didn't do anything. And they violently took a sept, not a castle, not a fort, a church, a fortified church, sure, but this wasn't a rival king. This was a church in like a couple towers and a couple villages, like with farmers. And he didn't like go there, say, let me talk to who's in charge, stop invading the north, deuces. That's not what he did. He showed up and slaughtered. How many heads does it take? Like, sure, this is legend, and who knows how many he took, but if he really did, like, literally post heads throughout the entire northern shore, that's like half the shore of all Westeros. How many heads did he take? That's a lot. That's thousands and thousands of people that he killed and beheaded who didn't attack him. They were over there. Maybe they one day were going to, but yeah, I maintain that this is needlessly brutal and nothing short of genocide. This is genocide. And I'm not a big fan of genociders, okay? It's just who I am as a person. Don't like genociders. Those villagers were not a threat. So this is crazy savage, not to mention conquering the sisters. So as far as we know, this started the war across the water, this was the aggressive act. Right? Why invade to try to take the islands, right, of the sisters, and then invading the Vale itself? This is more needless slaughter, and frankly makes him no better than the Ironborn or the Andals. If anything, I consider what the Andals were doing, since they were actually, if you go with what the Maesters are saying, they were fleeing Valyria. They had a reason to go over across water, a mass invasion, and trying to get a place to live and to be safe, right? And fight for that. That's not what Theon did here when he attacked the Vale. He was just trying to expand his kingdom. The same thing the Ironborn are later going to do, and the same thing that the Andals were doing. And in my opinion, if you go off what the Maesters are saying, the Andals had a little bit more of a reason to do it even. Right. So, frankly, this makes him no better than the people who were invading his land. This begs the question why the Reals invaded, rebelled. That's the word I'm looking for. Why did the Reals rebel? Well, if he was the greatest king ever, why would his people hate him? Why would anyone rebel if this guy was so great? Being a great king means more than just killing your foes. It means treating your people good. Absolutely. Stopping your enemies, preventing your enemies from killing your people, that is 100% something that makes a good conqueror or a good king, right? But you have to treat your people good. And maybe, who knows, maybe the Rills who invaded were just crazy people who were invaded from that area, right? And who knows, right? But my guess is if he had to stop a civil war, it was probably because he wasn't great. That's just my opinion on it. Who knows if it's true? Plus, all these are fictional people, anyways. So my take is that he was a heck of a war leader, but a tyrant and a killer, and I'm gonna stick to that. I don't actually think Theon the Hungry Wolf was a great king. I think he was a tyrant. I absolutely do. Yes, he prevented 2 invasions, but he started, or 3 if you want to count the wildlings too. So yeah, all right. 3 invasions. He did 1 of his own, and then there was 1 civil war. Scoreboard, maybe he's better than he was evil. So who knows? Maybe I'm being very controversial in being very nitpicky of his rule. Do you think that he is the greatest king that has ever lived in the North, the greatest king of winter? Or do you think that there is something there where maybe he wasn't that awesome, that he was kind of just a bloodthirsty savage and a hungry wolf, if you will? Let me know what you think in the comments. I might be way off. You guys might love him, or maybe you guys are like, yeah, you have a lot of good points. So we'll see. Thank you for watching. I was really excited to cover Theon Stark, and I'm glad I finally did. When I put this guy on the list, I fought it for a long time because I didn't think I was going to have any art. And when I eventually put him on the list, I was like, yeah, let's cover him even if I don't have art. Let's just do it. And I did find some from Marquee Gallery. So, yeah, cool. So I did end up getting it. But, I wanted to cover him before, and I eventually did. And then I needed that push, and I got the request. So I put it on the list. And ever since, I keep, all year, I pretty much was, checking, when do I cover Theon? I'm really excited. So Finally got it done. Thank you guys for watching. Click like and subscribe if you haven't. Let me know if you have any requests. Giant thank you for this request. And yeah, peace, not war. Theon, peace.